What is up, everyone? Predictions galore. Welcome to Pass the Rock. The NFL season prediction show starts now.
Can one of y'all pass the gosh darn rock? Hey yo, I'm trying, I ain't lying, and hosting this will be Brian. He posting like Kobe Bryant, he flying to see the pilot. Hit the hezzy, we got Jesse, opinions get kinda messy. A fan of Adeleti's, from football to racing jet skis. This is Pass the Rock, don't stop the shot clock. Pass the slap shot, come on, now let's talk. Pass the rock.
All right, we have to start with some COVID news, breaking news. Zach Zeman, our usual one of our three talking heads, out this week in COVID protocol. So, Zach, we hope you feel better. Welcome in his stead, David. David, how you doing today?
It's good to be back-to-back weeks. I can't believe Pass the Rock let me on here. But I'm excited to rip some hot takes. And, my takes are the only right takes, but I'm excited.
Yeah, we look forward to your Steelers-centric takes as we go through. And Jack, you have it's like all black and gold here. I got the Saints and two Steeler fans. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. I missed this last week, and I'm ready to talk some football.
Yeah, so we lived through 8 weeks of breaking down each division, very detailed, going through what I know David enjoyed last week when we did the fantasy draft. For the AFC West. And so now we're going to get to the whole season. Like, let's see how the picture looks. Let's take because it's easy to pick division winners or how teams are going to go within their division. Now you have to compare them with each other and figure out where everybody sits, who gets wild cards, all these different questions. So I'm going to start with one. I want to thank our intern Alpha Dog for throwing this one into the chat. What is the most likely scenario? A, that every single AFC West team makes the playoffs. B, that the Cardinals, Rams, and 49ers make the playoffs from the NFC West. Or C, that just Miami makes the playoffs. Jack, I'm going to you first.
This one's pretty easy for me. I think the Dolphins are awful, and I don't think that they're going to sniff the playoffs. I think that it's unlikely that all 4 of the AFC West teams make the playoffs just because not that they aren't good enough to. It's that the Ravens and the Bengals are both playoff caliber teams, and I think that they will both make it. And the chances of all 4 teams making it aren't high, even if they might be the 4 best teams to make it. So I think to me, it's pretty easy to pick the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Niners to make the playoffs. Even though I'm not a huge believer in the Cardinals, I wouldn't be completely shocked if they made it. And the Rams and the Niners, I think, are both absolutely playoff caliber teams. So I think that one's pretty easy for me.
All right, Jack goes with the NFC West. David, where do you sit on this debate? All 4 from the AFC West, 3 teams from the NFC West, or the Dolphins making the playoffs?
I have to completely disagree with Jack on this one. I do agree that all 4 AFC West teams making the playoffs does not seem likely just because of how deep the AFC is, which includes the Dolphins, which is where I'm leaning. I think that the Dolphins making the playoffs is a more likely scenario than the Cardinals, Rams, and 49ers making the playoffs, solely because I think that the Cardinals took a massive step back last year with a lot of losses on their defense and a lot of drama with Kyler Murray in the offseason as well. As much as that seems to be over with, I'm not a big believer in Cliff Kingsbury either. But I really like what Mike McDaniels has brought to Miami. I think their offense takes a significant step forward with Tyreek Hill. The defense didn't lose major pieces to make a big impact. And I think they're going to be comfortably in the 2nd spot in the AFC East. And they're going to compete for a wild card spot in the AFC as deep and as strong as that conference is. I think that is the most likely situations that Miami makes the playoffs.
Yeah, so I get to break the tie unless I'm going to pick all 4 teams from the AFC West, which I'm not, because they have to play each other. And so some team within that is going to be knocked down. I don't like the Cardinals at all. I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't see them making a huge splash. I think we really see the Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, coupling, what it can do this year, which is not much, maybe around 500. So I think also that the Dolphins of this scenario making the playoffs is the most likely. Now, I have not picked the Dolphins to make the playoffs, but I do think playing the Jets twice a year, playing the Patriots twice a year helps them get at least 3 wins. Who knows what they do with the Bills? Maybe they don't get that done. But I do think they have obviously enough offensive talent to be there. If Tua takes any sort of step up, we'll see if he's any of our picks to be a breakout player this year. But I think of those three scenarios, the Dolphins is the most likely because only one team has to figure it out to get it done. So a little NFL math to start. We got to figure all these things out. It's very complicated, even with 7 teams making the playoffs. So
just one quick note with that Dolphins take that we both agree on. The one thing that I also am looking forward to this year with Miami is it's going to be very similar to what San Francisco did. You have Mike McDaniel, who came from Kyle Shanahan, and you bring in Tyreek Hill, who is just a better Deebo Samuel at everything he does. We're going to see, whether you want to call them the San Francisco Dolphins or the Miami 49ers, it's going to be very similar to that type of style. Plus, they have a quarterback who hasn't shown a lot, just like Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't shown a lot. But I think, of course, the upside with Tua is much greater than it is with Garoppolo at this day and age. So we're going to see something similar in that aspect too. I'm excited to see how creative McDaniels can be with that offense, which is another reason why I like Miami.
Yeah, the Garoppolo thing is really interesting. I almost asked, you all if we think he's going to get cut or we think he's going to get traded. I think one of the only trade scenarios is really, maybe if Cleveland would want to upgrade for the 11 weeks that Watson is out, or Seattle, which obviously they're not going to trade him in division, just never happens in the NFL. So I think he ends up getting cut. But interesting to play that out. I drafted him last night in a fantasy football league just in case. I had Justin Herbert, so I don't plan on playing Garoppolo hardly at all. But I'm interested to see where he ends up. But a lot to talk about. So let's get to our 4 division winners from each conference. We're going to start in the AFC with Jack. We do have Zach's picks, so we can read through those. And then we have all of ours. I'm sure we don't agree, so let's start with you, Jack.
Yeah, so for me, I think that the top dog in the AFC, as they tend to be over and over and over again, is the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think anything changes with the loss of Tyreek Hill. I think that they're so good with Patrick Mahomes and just that offensive scheme. I don't see them falling off at all. They're still number 1 in the AFC. I think number 2 is going to be the Bills. I think that the Bills are going to be a really, really scary team this year. And I'm super excited to see them. I think that they have to be in the top 2 or 3 in your Super Bowl contenders. And then number 3, I have the Ravens winning the AFC North and finishing 3rd overall in the AFC. I think that they're going to bounce back. They actually, believe it or not, it's hard to remember this, but they finished last in the AFC North last year, which is pretty unbelievable given that it's the Ravens and their track record of success. But I think Lamar Jackson has a bounce back year. I think the whole team, generally speaking, has a bounce back year. They win the division and finish 3rd in the AFC. And then my 4th team in the AFC is the Indianapolis Colts, just because that division is terrible. And I think that the Colts defense is the most trustworthy unit of any unit in that division. And I think that defense carries them to probably 10-7 and winning that division, because I don't think it's very good.
Yeah, the AFC South preview show on Pass the Rock was probably our worst episode in the history of episodes because I don't think any of us were locked in or excited about talking about Jags football or Colts football or whatever. So going to you, David. So Jack's got Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Colts. Who are your 4?
I actually have those exact 4 as well, just in a little bit of a different order. I like the Bills number 1. This is their time. This is the time for Josh Allen. This is the time for Sean McDermott. They brought in Von Miller for this exact reason as well. He is a big player on that defense that can bring them over the hump. I really like Buffalo this year. I think they're going to dominate not just the AFC, but all of the NFL. They have the best safety duo in the league. They have an incredible front 7. Their run game got a lot deeper. I just really, really like Buffalo this year to be number 1 in the AFC. Number 2, I got the Chiefs. Same type of situation. Sure, Tyreek Hill leaves, but you still got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. That defense, they're still going to be very competitive in the AFC, and I have them being the 2nd seed. Number 3, I got Baltimore as well. Jack, very similar to what you said. It's so weird that the Ravens were dead last in the AFC North last year, but, that's also because of the fact that they got they got bit big time by that injury bug. A lot of their key players were banged up for not just weeks at a time, but the entire season. And at one point they were 7-2 and first in the AFC at one point last year, and then everything just fell apart because of all these injuries. But now that they're healthy, they're going to come back. They're going to be strong on top of their division, not being super, competitive either this year. I like the Ravens as the third seed in the AFC. And then as the fourth seed in the AFC South, the division winner, I'm going to go with the Colts as well. I think Matt Ryan is just better than Carson Wentz. I think he can bring a little bit more to the Colts offense. I really like Pittman. Of course, Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield. Their defense is still strong. And so those are my top four in the AFC.
All right, so I'm going to pivot. I thought Jack would have some sense about him, but obviously he doesn't. He's still picking the Chiefs to win the AFC West. My pick is Bills, and I agree. This is their time. I do think they're going to be a huge disappointment come AFC Conference Championship, which we'll talk about in a second, but they are the top seed in the AFC. I like the Chargers, number 2. The Chargers are another one of these teams up and coming. I think they win the division, but spoiler alert, I don't think they get to the conference championship. I like the Ravens 3, and I changed my pick from the Titans to the Colts since we did the AFC South show. I just really like that defense. I think Matt Ryan finally has a running back he can hand the ball off to for 25, 30 times. It's been a while since he's had that, and I don't think he's going to have to throw the ball around too much. And, I don't think you're going to notice his noodle arm as much as you've noticed it the last couple of years. So I got Bills, Chargers, Ravens, Colts in the AFC. If we go to Zach, Zach's got Bills, Chargers, Bengals, Titans. So he likes the Bengals to repeat. And it looks like he's the one of the four of us that still has a little bit of trust in the Titans and what they can do. I think it's pretty much a toss-up between Titans and Colts, but we'll see how that goes. Let's go to the NFC. David, we'll start with you for the NFC.
So for the NFC, the number 1 seed, he's back. Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're the number 1 seed. I think that there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I don't think he's too happy with the fact of how his whole retirement announcement kind of went down with the media and himself and his family and all that. And of course, I'm sure he just, as every quarterback might do, or honestly, any player who does retire, they have that itch to come back. And he's going to come back, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I know no Rob Gronkowski, but that's not going to matter this time. I think the Bucs win the NFC and take the number 1 seed. Win the NFC in terms of seeding, not necessarily in a whole.
Yep.
But they win the number 1 seed. Number 2, I like the Rams, defending champs. I still think they're obviously top 2 in the NFC. I think they're second. They win the West. That defense is stacked literally at every level, on the line with Aaron Donald, in the box with Bobby Wagner, and in the back with Jalen Ramsey. And then, of course, Matt Stafford, he has that elbow thing, but I'm not too concerned. Cam Akers is now healthy. They replace Odell with Allen Robinson. To me, at this point in their stage of the career, that's not necessarily a downgrade. So I think that's pretty good. I think that, Sean McVay, he's one of the smartest minds in the game. So they're the number 2 seed. Number 3, I like the Packers. I think the Packers do dip a bit, but I still think they win the division. You have the back-to-back reigning MVP in Aaron Rodgers. Sure, they lost Devontae Adams, but their defense is still really, really good. I think not a lot of people are talking about how good their defense is. They have a 2-headed monster with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the backfield. And, so I really like the Packers at 3 there. And then number 4 is the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys winning the division. I know there's a lot of hype with the Eagles this year, and the Cowboys consistently disappoint when it matters most. But the regular season does not matter most sometimes when it comes to the Cowboys. So they'll be successful. They're going to score a lot of points. Lots of reports out of camp saying that Dak Prescott has never looked better in this training camp compared to others. I think yes, they did take a dip a little bit on their defense, but that's why I have them 4th. But I still think that they do win the division. So there's my top 4.
Yeah, the NFC East and the NFC North are kind of toss-ups, weird divisions to pick. And it looks like we'll have some other disagreements as well. So going to you, Jack, in the NFC, who are your 4 division winners and how are they seeded?
Yeah, so my 4, again, is very similar to David with a little bit of a change in the order, but I have the same 4 teams. I think in my case, the first seed is the reigning defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. I mean, there's no reason that they shouldn't be the best team in football this year. They literally got better after the Super Bowl. I mean, Allen Robinson is an upgrade on what they had at wide receiver too. The defense is still incredible. They brought in Bobby Wagner, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, it's the Rams. They're going to win the NFC, and in my opinion, or at least in the regular season, not necessarily in the playoffs, but at least they'll be the best team in the regular season. Number 2, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady. I mean, what more can you say? He's back, and the Bucs they've proven that under Tom Brady, as all teams under Tom Brady are, they're going to be consistently good and right in the mix. And I think that given the rest of the division champions in the NFC, they're definitely the second best. Third, I've got the Packers. They lost Devontae Adams. They're definitely weaker than they were last year, but they still have the back-to-back MVP in Aaron Rodgers. And that division is not so good. And by a product of that, the Packers are probably going to win 11 games and get that third seed. And then the fourth seed, in my opinion, is the Cowboys, just because, I mean, they're good. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. I don't think the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender either. Even though that might make Zach a little angry, but I don't think the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender. Jalen Hurts is really the difference here for me. I'm not a big believer in Jalen Hurts. And I think the consistency of Dak Prescott will win the Cowboys the division and put the Eagles in the wild card conversation.
Yeah, well, if Zach was, so proud of his Eagles, he'd have shown up today. So, so here I am with the NFC. I have some major differences from the two of you. I would say first, I'll start at the bottom. I have the Packers as the 4 seed. I wanted to pick the Vikings so much. And I do think the Lions are going to make a little run, not necessarily at the division, but I think they're going to upset the Packers and Vikings each once and blow out the Bears because the Bears are just the absolute worst. But so I think the Packers are going to have a tougher time. They're going to win the division, but they're going to end up as the 4 seed. I like the Eagles as the 3 seed. I don't see a scenario where the Cowboys end up better than the Eagles. And I think the Eagles have done enough, especially giving Jalen Hurts some weapons to throw to, that they're going to be there. They're going to win a division. I like the Saints as the 2 seed. The Bucs are 0-4 in the regular season the last 2 years against the Saints. I think that continues, and I think the Saints defense is not being talked about nearly enough. And we're talking probably top 2 or 3 in the NFL right now, to where Jameis Winston just has to control the ball, hand it off, a few passes here and there. Plus, he's got a ton of weapons. They're the 2 seed, and I think the Rams are the 1 seed. I agree. They got better like immediately after the Super Bowl. It makes me angry to think about the Rams having success, but in the end, I do think that they're the 1 seed, and they will get the bye going into the first round of the playoffs. We'll see where the predictions go as far as where they end up. Zach had a little bit of different list. He very close to mine, although a few teams switched out. The Rams 1, the Bucs 2, the Eagles 3, the Packers 4. So we all have the Packers, we all have the Rams, and then there's a little bit of difference other than that. So let's get to the wild card spot. So we got the teams that have one team has a bye, and the other teams are hosting wild card teams. Jack, going to you for the AFC wild card teams. Now, just to repeat, you picked the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, and Colts as your division winners.
Yeah, that I did do. So my wild card teams, I think AFC wild card is going to be really, really competitive this year. I think that there's 5 or 6 teams that I could see getting the 3 spots. There's 2 really that I think absolutely make it, and the first one is my 5 seed, which is the Chargers. They got so much better this offseason. That defense is probably going to be a top 5 defense this year with all the additions they made in J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack, on top of already having Joey Bosa and Derwin James. And I mean, you just go down the list. They're unbelievable. And I think that they're going to make the playoffs and make a run at the AFC West, but I still think that's the Chiefs division. The 6th seed I also think is almost a lock, and that's the reigning AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. I don't see them missing the playoffs. As long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, that's the key for them. Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback. I will die on that hill. I think that he's incredible. He'll lead them back to the playoffs, and they might make some noise in the playoffs. Who knows? And then the 7 seed is where things really get interesting. I think it could go to any of the remaining AFC West teams and the Raiders or the Broncos. I could see the Steelers making their little sneaky push to get in there at 9-8 or 10-7, depending on how much the AFC West teams beat up on each other. But in the end, I think that it's going to be the Denver Broncos getting that 7 seed with Russell Wilson at the helm. I think that their receivers are going to take a big step. Their defense is really good. And I think that's going to be just enough to get them in the playoffs over the Raiders and the Steelers.
All right. So Chargers, Bengals, Broncos. David, to you.
Little similar, but I'm going to go with 5 being the Chargers as well. I think if they weren't in the division with the Chiefs, they'd probably win their division. But I like the Chargers. Again, very similar to Josh Allen with the Bills. I think Justin Herbert, this is going to be a big year for him. And I think come like week 9, 10, 11, when it kind of nearly narrowed down that MVP list, it's going to just go back and forth every single week between Josh Allen and Justin Herbert as who's the front runner to take home that award. And with that, I have the Chargers at 5. Basically everything Jack said. Their defense got better. It's another year of experience for that offense. The offensive line is going to get better. I think Austin Eckler is going to have a good year. They got tons of weapons. So, yeah, I really, really like the Chargers hitting in that 5 spot. 6, I like the Bengals, the reigning AFC champs. Again, very similar to what you said. Joe Burrow's the truth. He has swag on and off the field. It sickens me as a Steelers fan that we got to deal with this guy for 10, 15 years. But, the Bengals are going to be relevant as long as he's healthy. The offensive line got a lot better, and that was the clear biggest issue for them was to protect Joe Burrow, and they did just that this offseason. So they are in my 6th spot. And then 7, I have the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to beat the Broncos for that last spot. I don't know. I have a little bit of faith in Derek Carr this year. I know he's never really done much in terms of like the resume. He's got some of the stats, but he hasn't really like come up big when it's mattered most. And I think this year they'll be the 7th seed. Their defense is a little bit better. It's not great. Max Crosby keeps taking their steps in the right direction as being true elite defender in the league. Of course, the addition of Devontae Adams is huge, along with Renfro and Waller. And yeah, I think Josh McDaniels is just a bit of an upgrade over Nathaniel Hackett with the Broncos. He's got a lot more coaching experience than Hackett does, so I'm kind of leaning to Vegas a little bit. So yeah, those are my AFC 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, Zach, another believer in the Raiders. He's got Chiefs 5, Raiders 6, Ravens 7. I can't hitch my wagon to the Raiders. I need to see it happen. I think Darren Waller is a key. I think if he can step up, realizing there's going to be coverage on Devontae Adams, which he hasn't really had to worry about another receiver garnering too much coverage, and has a big year, I think there's a possibility. I don't like Josh Jacobs a lot. I worry about their defense. So my picks are I had the Chargers winning the AFC West. So I have the Chiefs at 5, Bengals at 6, and Broncos at 7, exactly like Jack. I love the idea of Russell Wilson, playing with the Broncos and that offense really being elevated to the point where they're top 5 defense, which I drafted last night. Has some very exciting opportunities, and I don't think you can bet against Joe Burrow. So I like Chiefs, Bengals, Broncos. So let's get on to the NFC side. David, we'll start with you. Wildcard teams from the NFC.
This was tough for me because I had 4 teams that I truly do believe in, but there's only 3 spots. So this was tough for me, though. I'm gonna lean with. Oh, this is a wild card move right here. This is not in my notes. I'm gonna go with the Vikings at 5. I think that they lost so many close games last year, and a lot of it could have been because of Mike Zimmer. But they got a new coach in town. Kirk Cousins, I know it's known on the show that he's mediocre. I don't think he's mediocre. I think he's top 15. So there you go, above average. But
is he on the lower end of that? Because that's mediocre. But go ahead.
Top 15. He could be between 14, 14, 15. Sure, he's right there. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with the Vikings at 5. I think Dalvin Cook's gonna have another big year. There's just I don't know. They lost so many close games last year that I think this year, with like a new voice in the locker room, they can maybe switch those 3-point losses into 4-point wins and get the touchdown instead of having to settle for a field goal in certain drives that they have. So I'm going to go with the Vikings at 5. Number 6, I got the Eagles. I think that they made huge additions in the offseason. I really like Nick Sirianni. They really helped their defense through the draft and their offense, I guess, through the draft, even though it was a trade for a bona fide top 10 wide receiver in A.J. Brown. That's really what they needed for Jalen Hurts to have a huge year. He's got a huge target that he can just chuck the ball to, and more often than not, he's going to make that play. So I like the Eagles at 6. And then I got the Saints at 7. This was a little bit of a homer pick just because of my colleague Brian, but it was between the Saints and 49ers for me, but I'm going to lean the Saints a little bit just because I trust that quarterback situation, only because we haven't seen Trey Lance play. So we've seen Jameis Winston perform. They're getting Michael Thomas back. Their defense is very good. But I'm liking them a little bit more than San Francisco, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to a week 17, week 18, a bunch of scenarios have to happen between the Saints and the 49ers of seeing which one of those teams can go in, but I'm leaning New Orleans.
Well, if the 49ers hadn't blown a 20-3 lead to the Rams last year in week 18, we'd have made the playoffs last year. But anyway,
there you go.
Moving on to you, Jack, NFC picks for the wild card.
The wild card picks in the NFC are pretty easy for me. I think there's 3 teams that really stand out above the rest in this wild card race. The first of which is my 5 seed, which is the Saints. I think that they are right there with the Bucs of the division. I think the Bucs will edge them out by a little bit, but I do think that the Saints are right there. They're an incredible team. Like Brian was saying earlier, they have a ridiculously good defense that does not get talked about enough. And they're gonna be a really good team. They're gonna be super competitive, and I'm excited to see them this year. I think that the Eagles will finish with the 6th seed. I'm not the biggest believer in Jalen Hurts. I don't think that he's that great, but I do think that they made a lot of really good surrounding improvements to that team. And I think that that's a team that is good enough to make the playoffs. I don't think that they're a Super Bowl contender by any means, but I think they're good enough to get a wild card spot and compete in the playoffs. And then my 7th seed is the San Francisco 49ers. I have been very vocal on this show about my love of Kyle Shanahan and how great of a head coach I think he is. And I think that Trey Lance is the perfect Kyle Shanahan quarterback. And I think he's going to show that right away. It's not his rookie season, but it's his rookie season on the field. I think he's going to show that right away. And the Niners, I don't think they miss a beat. I think they might honestly be better than they were last year with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. And they, I think, easily make the 7th seed over the other 2 teams that I think are close are the Vikings and the Cardinals. But I think that the Saints, Eagles, and 49ers, I think there's a tier gap between those 3 and the 2 below.
Yeah, so I do think the NFC is interesting. It's not nearly as competitive as the AFC because the AFC just has some higher level talent at the top. But I do think there are teams like the Lions that could step up and maybe cause a couple of issues. The Cardinals will be around. But in the end, number 5 is the Bucs because I have the Saints winning the NFC South. Number 6 is the 49ers. I think Trey Lance is better than advertised, and he shows it. I don't think that ends up getting them a playoff victory, but I do think very promising start to a career, kind of like how Lamar Jackson jumped out his rookie year. And then I actually really like the Vikings. I think they hold off the Lions. I do think that their offense takes another step. Justin Jefferson projected as a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy, and I think that's true. I think Adam Thielen, as long as he stays healthy, which you could say about everyone, but if he stays healthy, they could challenge and maybe even beat the Packers for the division. So I like them a lot in the 7th seed, and just continuing to kind of inch their way up, and it would not shock me at all if they overcome the Packers, because the Packers season just feels to me like it could explode over one thing. And then Aaron Rodgers is disgruntled. We have this huge blow-up divorce maybe mid-season. So interesting to see how that plays out. Zach has Saints, Cardinals, 49ers. So he definitely believes that the 3 teams scenario that we started off with from the NFC West is the most likely scenario. He's actually got it playing out. I can't trust the Cardinals like he is, but it looks like he's pretty big on them as the 6th seed in the NFC. So let's get to conference championship and then just roll all the way through your Super Bowl pick as well. And I'm going to let you start, David.
Okay, so after looking through everything I've seen in this long off season, I think we're going to have in the AFC the Super Bowl last year, in my opinion, was the AFC division matchup between the Bills and the Chiefs. That was such a good game. And I think this year we get it in the AFC Championship game. And I think Josh Allen and the Bills come out on top. I have the Bills coming out of the AFC. I think this is finally the year that they get over that hump. I can see Von Miller making that impact strip sack on Patrick Mahomes to seal the game. I can see it all happening. These teams are going to go back and forth. I just really like what the Bills have put together. And this is it. This is put up or shut up. If they can't do it this year, I don't know what they're going to do to beat these guys. But this is the year that they're going to do it. I like the Bills beating the Chiefs out of the AFC to go to the Super Bowl. And then in the NFC, he's back. Tom Brady. I think that they go through. And I actually have them – oh, no, where'd my notes go? I have them beating the LA Rams. The Rams were going to be right there. Again, like we said, they have a loaded defense. They only got better. But I think, you can't beat the GOAT twice in a row in the playoffs. It's not going to happen this time. Somehow something's going to happen, and Tom Brady's going to end up having the ball with like 2 minutes and 15 seconds left, and we all know how that story ends. So I like Tampa. I like Tampa here beating the Rams. So it's going to be a Bills-Bucks Super Bowl, and the King rides out on top with ring number 8. I think Tampa defeats the Bills.
Disgusting.
In the Super Bowl. Listen, I know it's disgusting, but I mean, this is it. This is the script. He wants to go out on top. He's gonna go out on top. So the Bills will figure out how to get to the Super Bowl. They just won't figure out how to win it. Brady beats the Bills again. He just owns the Bills franchise. So yeah, I like Tampa taking home the Super Bowl again this year, and now he'll actually ride into the sunset after winning 8 Super Bowls. Oh my God.
And he would make Buffalo 0-5 in the Super Bowl if that scenario were to play out. All right, Jack, walk us through your conference championship all the way through the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so my conference championships are actually pretty similar to David's. My AFC is exactly the same as David's. I had the Chiefs winning the AFC in the regular season, so this game would be in Kansas City. But I think the Bills are going to go in there and beat the Chiefs. I think that this is their year. Josh Allen is finally in his full form. The defense is great with the addition of Von Miller. The offense is just as good as it's been for the last few years now. And I think this is finally the year that they get over the hump and get revenge for last season. And in the NFC, I have the same matchup in the Rams versus the Buccaneers. But I think that the defending champs win this one. I think that the Rams make it to the Super Bowl for the second year in a row, which it's been a while since we've seen that. But I really believe in this Rams team. I mean, they just won the Super Bowl. And like I said earlier, they got better. It's really hard for me to not see them getting back in there. And I know that Tom Brady's going to try to write the script and ride off into the sunset. But I just think the Rams are too good. I really think they're too good. And that gets us with a Super Bowl matchup of the Rams and the Bills, which I think would be just a phenomenal Super Bowl matchup. I think it would be, in my opinion, the best defense in the league versus the best offense in the league. Obviously, the defense of the Rams and the offense of the Bills. And it's going to be that would be an incredible game. And, they say defense wins championships, but Josh Allen, I think, is going to be the MVP this year. I think he's really going to take command of this Bills team. And I think the Bills win the Super Bowl. I think the Bills end their dry spell, and this is their year.
Interesting. Well, that's the first game of the season as well. On the Thursday night is Bills at the Rams. So that would be an interesting storyline. Yep. So let's go through Zach's real quick, and then I'll get to mine. So Zach has the Bills beating the Chargers in the AFC Championship, the Rams beating his Eagles in the NFC Championship, shocker. And then he has or not, it is a shocker that the Eagles would lose because usually he would pick them all the way through. But he's got the Bills over the Rams as well, Jack. So he sees it for the Bills. You all see it for the Bills. Now let's get to my scenario. My scenario is that the Chiefs don't win the AFC West, but they do win the AFC. So they figure out a way. They get to play the Bills. So this would be the 5-seeded Chiefs against the 2-seeded Bills. And I think the Chiefs do it. I think the Bills, this will be year 3 in a row of having lost to the Chiefs, just like they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. Maybe we'll add another one. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. And, in the end, they still just can't get past Patrick Mahomes and that whole Chiefs aura. So the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl. And then I have the Rams over the Saints again. Obviously, happened a few years ago where the Rams and the refs beat the Saints. But I think this year a little more legitimate because I really do believe that Rams team got a lot better. And I think they add Odell Beckham midway through the season as well because he's just going to hover. Why is he going to rush to sign with somebody now? It doesn't matter. They'll take him back then. He'll do the same thing he did last year, join them in week 13, and then go all the way through the Super Bowl. Hopefully for him, doesn't get injured and tear his ACL when he was going to be the MVP of the Super Bowl. Getting to the Super Bowl, that would be Rams-Chiefs. I think the Rams repeat, and I think Matt Stafford retires and goes off into the sunset, a la John Elway. Because you win 2 in a row at the end of your career, just be done with it. Just be done with it, and he gets out of there. So I think that's how it plays out.
Didn't he just sign a fat extension, though? I guess that doesn't really matter.
Did. But if you win 2 in a row, I think you really got to think about what more am I doing? I mean, look, that team is still going to be stacked, and maybe he's like, I'll try one more time. But no one's ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row.
Right. I'm down for that storyline. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we'll see if and how that plays out, but it's exciting to talk about now.
Here's a question that arises from that scenario. If that were to happen, Matt Stafford wins the Super Bowl, rides off in the sunset. Is Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer?
Oh, yeah. 2 wins in the Super Bowl? Yeah.
Probably.
I'd have to look at his stats, but I think if you win 2 Super Bowls, there's a bunch of people that argue against Eli Manning, okay?
Yeah.
He's also got 2 Super Bowl wins. I think it's hard to not – and maybe I'm a guy that, weighs championships more heavily, but, I get that, Drew Brees has all these stats and, everybody thinks first ballot Hall of Famer, no question. Eli Manning's got a lot of stats too, not Drew Brees level, but 2 championships is better than 1, so you got to put him in too.
Yeah, I'm sure he's tops for some of the Detroit numbers as well. So
right.
I think he's probably if he does that back to back too, to me that's a no-brainer. Yeah.
I mean, is Ben Roethlisberger a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
What kind of question is that? He's best
also
quarterback.
He's also got 2 championships. That's why I asked
fair. That's fair. Yeah. I would put Stafford in for the same reason. That's completely fair.
Roethlisberger's the best Steelers quarterback all time, but we can have that discussion another day.
Yeah.
I would love to have that conversation at some point because it's interesting because I'm from Louisiana, so I have all the Terry Bradshaws from North Louisiana situation. So I look forward to having that conversation one day. Let's move on though. Let's go through our MVP. Who is going to be the MVP of the league this year? I'm going to start with you, Zach. Or no, I can't start with Zach. He's not here. Zach picked Justin Herbert, which I just thought was so interesting as a pick. And then he put Jalen Hurts. Obviously, that was a joke. So with that as the starter, I'm going to go to you, David. Who's your pick for MVP?
I mean, we've been saying it all show. I like Josh Allen. This is his year. It's sometimes the NFL, it's just there's a feel someone's due. Someone's just due to get it, and I think this is the year that Josh Allen is due to get it. That's no slight to Justin Herbert. I mean, I did just mention a few minutes ago how I think come week 10 and week 11, we're going to have that conversation that it's going to be a running between those 2 guys. They're just going to separate themselves from the rest of the field. But because I just think that Buffalo is going to be exceptionally better and win their division as opposed to the Chargers, I'm leaning Josh Allen. This is his time. He can do it in the air. He can do it on the ground. I honestly think that Buffalo is probably going to have the best record in the NFL total as well this year. So this is the time for Josh Allen, and I think he's going to be MVP.
All right, Jack, I'll let you continue the symphony here.
Yeah, so I think I have the same result, but I think that you're right about there being a little bit of a showdown in the end between two guys. But I think it's between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I think that Justin Herbert is going to have an incredible year. Don't get me wrong, but I have the Chiefs as the best team in the NFL in the regular season, and I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to put up some ridiculous numbers. But I think that's going to be outmatched by the numbers that Josh Allen puts up. I think, like David said, Josh Allen is due. It's going to be a great battle between him and Mahomes, and I think we get that matchup in the AFC Championship, like I just said earlier. But I think in the end, it's Josh Allen's MVP, and it's Josh Allen who wins in the playoffs.
Yeah, so if you watch them both over the weekend, they both looked exceptional. But I'm going to lean Patrick Mahomes just because I think that the whole Tyreek Hill thing, leaving, this is Patrick Mahomes' time to like prove himself. And on Saturday, he looked like the magician that we remember. And so I think he's going to take that as a personal affront and step up and do what he needs to do for the Chiefs. Like I said, I don't think that he wins the division just because I think the Chargers have a little extra luck and win an extra game. But in the end, he represents the AFC in the Super Bowl. So give me Patrick Mahomes on that one. Let's move on. Offensive Player of the Year. This one, we are all over the place. So I kind of like where we're going here. I will actually start and say that Jonathan Taylor is going to be the Offensive Player of the Year. When you look at how much better he was fantasy-wise than any other running back last year, it's pretty amazing. He's still got really young legs, and they don't want – if they need to rely on Matt Ryan to win games for them, they're going to be in serious trouble because his arm is dead. So I like Jonathan Taylor. I like him at 1,800 yards or so, plus whatever he gets receiving. And I think he's the Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL. Jack.
Yeah, so, I was going to pick Jonathan Taylor. Not right now, but when I was first thinking this through, Jonathan Taylor was the original guy I had in mind, but I wanted to go for a little bit more of a surprise pick, something that I think could come out of nowhere. Although JT is obviously great and incredible and a Wisconsin Badger, so I love him forever. But I think that Michael Thomas is going to win the Offensive Player of the Year award. I think he's back this year. I think he plays a full season, or hopefully, knock on wood. But as long as he is in that lineup, I think he's going to dominate. I think he's going to be just like how he was before all the drama of the last couple seasons. And I think that he's going to assert himself back in the conversation as of a top 3 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, and just a quick note, he's actually got other receivers that are playing on the same team that he's playing with, which will do nothing but help him to roll coverage that way. Going to you, David, Offensive Player of the Year.
I have someone different as well, and I think it's Justin Jefferson, the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings are going to flip a switch this year. I think they're going to turn a lot of those tough losses into wins, and I think he's going to be a big reason for it. We were praising his flowers earlier, at least Brian was. And I just think, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I think now this is a moment that he can, really step up and be like, I'm that guy. I can be one of the best receivers in football. We'll see if there's like some sort of I personally think he's still going to be okay. But is it Aaron Rodgers that made Devontae Adams, or did Devontae Adams make Aaron Rodgers? We're going to see that this year. And I think because of that, I think numbers are going to go down for both of those players. And I think we're going to see Justin Jefferson take a huge step forward in that wide receiver debate of who's the best in the league. And, with a new offense, a new voice, I really like Jet Jettas. He's going to take it.
Awesome pick. Obviously an LSU guy. It's amazing for me to think that he and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow were on the same team, but on the same side of the ball on the same team in college. So as I look at Zach's pick, he's got Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, he's betting on some health. Christian McCaffrey's getting closer to that, running back graveyard, age 30. So, in spite of the injury-plagued seasons he's had the last 3 years, he's also got that coming up. But Zach picks him for Offensive Player of the Year, which we know, based on talent, he can definitely make happen. So let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. Start with you, David.
I'm going to go with Myles Garrett. I think this is his time. I know, of course, Aaron Donald's the easy cop-out answer, but I just think it's one of those things where, the league's going to want something a little bit fresher. We saw it last year with TJ Watt. I just think Myles, especially with Cleveland's situation right now, they're going to rely on their defense, and in particular Myles Garrett, to make some of those game-winning plays, even though he's on the defensive side of the ball. I just think, he was right there last year with TJ Watt, but I think with everything going on, if somehow, some way the Browns are, 500 or even above 500 by week 6 or week 7, and then you have Deshaun Watson come in for a potential playoff push, I think a lot of us are going to look at Myles Garrett being that reason that they were able to stay afloat. I'm going to go with Myles Garrett. I think this is the year that he can take it. And, I like Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and they're going to need him just to stay in games until week 12 or whatever and it'll be so interesting to see if Watson can actually still play quarterback with this team in week 12. He hasn't looked good this preseason, let's just say that. Going to you, Jack. I like your kind of sleeper pick for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, so I want to preface this pick by saying that Aaron Donald is the best player in football, and that my pick right here is no disrespect to Aaron Donald, and I think that he's going to have a ridiculous season and by statistics should probably win Defensive Player of the Year. But the NFL doesn't really roll that way. Defensive Player of the Year tends to be more of who made your eyes pop this year. And I think that that's going to be Khalil Mack, newly acquired by the LA Chargers. I think that he's the missing piece to make that defense an elite defense, and he's going to have a phenomenal year after getting out of Chicago, which, that could destroy anyone's career being stuck there. So I think he's going to have a great bounce-back season. I think he's going to be arguably the best defensive player in the NFL this year, although I do think that's Aaron Donald, but I do think that the NFL will give Khalil Mack the award for that bounce-back of a season.
I love that you had to preface that as though Aaron Donald might live in your neighborhood and he will have heard this show.
Hey, I live in LA.
I know you do. But you'll be in Wisconsin in a few days. So
I don't want Aaron Donald to come hunting me down.
Yeah, Zach and I both went with the chalk and picked Aaron Donald. He's the best defensive player in a long time, and we agree. And so we don't have to talk much about that. You all know who Aaron Donald is. Offensive and defensive rookies of the year. I will go first. I'll give you both of mine. First is, if you missed Hard Knocks with the Detroit Lions, you have to watch it. It's so interesting. Dan Campbell is one of those guys, like when Mike Tomlin first came out as to be the Steelers coach, where you're just like, we're excited about the halftime interview because he'd get you pumped up to go get nachos or whatever. So you got to love that. And you also have to love Aiden Hutchinson. That dude, he's so slight looking because he's just so athletic. And I'm excited about, what he'll do as a defensive player of the year this year with the Lions. And then I love Chris Olave. I know it's a Saints homer pick, but that guy, there's no cornerback that even touches him off the line. He's so sleek to get past them that he's not going to get bumped a lot. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But the guy's got moves upon moves, and I think in that offense with Jarvis Landry on one side and Michael Thomas on the other side, he's going to have a feast as the slot receiver. So he's a flyer late in your fantasy football drafts to pick. I think he'll have a great year and be the offensive player of the year. On to you, Jack.
Yeah, so my rookies, I'll start on offense. This was probably my toughest pick, was offensive rookie of the year. I really didn't know where to go here. The receivers, to me, a lot of them are very, very great. And I think Olave's got a really good year. Garrett Wilson, I think, will have a very good year. But I went with Garrett Wilson's teammate in running back Breece Hall because I think that he is going to dominate on the ground this year. I think that he's going to look like the best running back in this class by far. And I think he's going to be right up there in the pushing towards the top 10 running backs in the NFL range after this year. And I think he's going to run away with the award. Defensively, I'm going with who I think was the best player in this class. And I was stunned that he fell as far as he did in the draft. And that was Kayvon Thibodeau of the New York Giants, who I think is just going to dominate defensively this year. And as great as I think Aiden Hutchinson is, and as great as I think Dan Campbell will make Aiden Hutchinson, I just have to bet on the talent of Kayvon Thibodeau and what I saw coming out of college, because that dude is a beast.
All right. On to you, David.
So I'm going to go with a bit of a homer pick as well for offensive. I really want to go with Kenny Pickett, but I don't think he's going to be the starter, so he'll fall behind a little bit. But I'm going to go with George Pickens, the wide receiver to come out of Georgia for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, he's been fantastic in camp. He's made incredible plays in the preseason as well. And this also stems from the fact that I do think Chase Claypool is going to be traded at some point this season to upgrade either the defense or the offensive line for the Steelers. Listen, quarterback can't be worse than it was the last 2 years for Pittsburgh. So they're going to see what they have with both Trubisky and with Pickett. And they're going to realize that, okay, our time to go back into Super Bowl contention could be a lot sooner than we anticipated. And I think getting rid of a guy like Claypool and keeping a guy like George Pickens and prioritizing him in the offense is going to be huge for Pittsburgh and huge for Pickens, that he's going to end up leading all rookies in receiving yards and touchdowns. And I think he takes home Offensive Rookie of the Year. Another fantastic sleeper wide receiver picked by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They do it every single year in the draft. And then defensively, I'm agreeing with Brian. I think it's Aiden Hutchinson, 100%. Hard Knocks should feature more quote-unquote bad teams just to see where their mentality is moving forward. You know, the Cowboys was boring. They just won the division. They were going to win it again. Didn't really care to see all that. I love seeing Dan Campbell, and I love seeing what, like, the Lions knew they weren't good, and they probably know they're not going to be good this year either. But how can they maybe double their wins from 3 to 6? How are they going to strategize that? And I love seeing that on Hard Knocks. And Aiden Hutchinson, I think we're seeing this mold of edge rushers who aren't these big, huge 250-pound guys. They're slim, they're fast, and they're strong. And Aiden Hutchinson's going to be that next guy to be that in the NFL in general, not just this year. And I think he's going to have a fantastic year for Detroit. The only thing the Lions are really missing is quarterback, and maybe they'll solve that in next year's draft. And watch out for next year. But we'll circle back to that a year from now. I really like Aiden Hutchinson defensively.
Yeah, I almost bought a Jamal Williams jersey after the speech he gave. I mean, just like 3-13 is not us, you know? So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's better to see it from the perspective of a team that hasn't been there, that's fighting to get there. So that's interesting. But, okay, let's end with this. We're going to do top breakout candidates. So what player that hasn't yet done anything in the NFL or done much in the NFL breaks out this year? Obviously, it could be huge for fantasy if it's an offensive player, or just huge for their NFL careers. So, David, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tua. We mentioned this before, how, you know, he's been very just fine. He's not a winner, but he's not a loser. So you got to really find that balance of, you know, what can we make the most out of him. But they upgraded the offensive line, and they upgraded the wide receiver room. So to me, there's no excuses for him. This is his time to take a huge step forward and show why he was the number 3 overall pick. Am I right there? I think so. Five.
Yeah.
Top 10, regardless. One of the best. You know, he's taken out that early because he was supposed to be one of the best. And you know, last time Miami passed on a left-handed quarterback, ended up going to New Orleans and had some success there. So this time, you know, he's got tons of pieces around him. I think this is the year that we see to take a big step forward and go from a guy that can't lose you games to win you games.
2 points on that. Zach agrees with you. He also picked Tua. Drew Brees is right-handed. But either way.
Who was thinking of that? I don't know.
I don't know who you were thinking of. But anyway, either way, the Dolphins did pass on a future Hall of Famer and instead went with Dante Culpepper. But that's all history now. So just like you and Zach both picked Tua, Jack and I picked not the same player, but the same team in the same position. So I'm going to let Jack start.
Yeah, and I mean, my pick came down to my pick and Brian's pick. I mean, I was really flipping a coin between these two because I think they're both going to be awesome. And that is the two Broncos receivers, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Judy. My personal pick was Jerry Judy because I think coming out of Alabama, he was just a beast. I thought he was the best receiver in that class when at the time of the draft. Obviously, Justin Jefferson was in that class. So in hindsight, maybe not the best take. But Judy, I still think, has that potential in him. And I think that with Russell Wilson, that potential is going to be unlocked this year. And, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a third-year Chris Godwin in the way that there was another good receiver on that team in Mike Evans for the Bucs and Cortland Sutton for the Broncos, and that he's sort of been in the shadows, been banged up a little bit. And this year he's healthy and got a great quarterback in there. And I think he's going to have that breakout season in a similar way to how Chris Godwin did in Tampa.
Yeah, look, I think Judy was the better wide receiver in college than Justin Jefferson or, some others as well. So I think he and Cortland Sutton are going to remember what it's like to make their cut and the ball is right there where their hands are rather than wherever Drew Lock would try to get it or Teddy Two Gloves Bridgewater. So I'm excited for both of them. I picked Cortland Sutton just to not pick the same person, but I think they both have a great season. I think that offense is one that you haven't seen in Denver in quite some time because let's remember their last Super Bowl victory was all their defense, Von Miller and their defense. It wasn't really anything to do with Peyton Manning and whatever was going on in offense. So I think they both break out. I think they have a huge year. And as I said earlier, they're going to be the 7th seed in the AFC. So we'll see how it all plays out. A bunch of predictions. It could all go sideways with 1 or 2 injuries, but always fun to look at that. There's a ton of football content coming up. Obviously, follow us on Twitter at Lost Tribe Sports. We have our fantasy football show coming on next Monday night. It'll be live on Twitch where we do our staff league analysis of picks. Jesse will finally be back after a summer in the great North at camp. And you can join a fantasy football league through Lost Tribe and actually compete for prizes yourself. losttribe.org/event/fantasy football. It's on our website. You sign up, then we send you a link to our Yahoo League. It's going to be a lot of fun. So David and Jack, thank you very much. Zach, thank you on the bench, sending in your picks. A lot of fun today, and just looking forward to the rest of this season. Content. So you guys enjoy your evening, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Had a great time.